right, let's see. Actually, yeah, I'm going to keep checking that forever. Okay, checking to see if I got audio. I cannot let it go that it might not be working. It's been too many times. Yep. All right, we're good there. All right. Okay. It is Friday, May 9th, 2025 at 5:07 p.m. Central Daylight Time, and here we are in Fallout 76, and I'm going to talk to you all about upcoming videos, what's been going on with the Atlantic City videos, because those are definitely far past due at this point, and about videos that will be coming up for the rest of the month. So, alright, so the big things that have been going on, why it is I haven't gotten the Atlantic City videos out. Let's start off with just the basic issues with filming and the script. So, I've been trying to film, okay, so I'll say I've tried to film the Boardwalk surveillance video twice, and neither time was I happy with how it came out. So I ended up deleting it, and so that you know, the full recording of those things takes a full hour and a half, because it's a massive location, including the Atlantic City Boardwalk, Showman's Pier, and the Aquarium of the Atlantic. And part of the problem too is that once I record one of those things, I forget whether or not it's I've talked about something within that specific recording that I'm currently making, because again, I've already recorded it before. So it's definitely an issue that will hopefully be resolved by the fact that I haven't tried to record one of those videos in the past few days. So when I do record one next, which will likely be Sunday, would be my bet, Saturday or Sunday, I will hopefully be able to get that thing done and out by the next day. Now, it is going to take a while to edit, because again, they are an hour and a half long. And while I can easily trim out 5-10 minutes of that when it's just things like loading and stuff like that, and me basically making minor mistakes and having to cut those little chunks out, the rest of the video still will be something like an hour and 20 minutes long. So they're long videos. Not only that, there's a lot of reading to do in them, and I obviously have to do some multiple takes sometimes on that, so I have to cut that stuff out. But anyway, once those things are done, hopefully I can have those things out early next week. Now, as for the lore video, I've now gotten to 3 different versions of the script in terms of how I tried to write it. And I think I'm finally happy with the way I'm currently writing it now. It is not exactly the way that I wrote the first 2. Basically, I went through different iterations of how to tell the story, and I think I've stumbled onto the right one. And I'm moving forward with that, but again, it's a lot of content, and so it's going to take a little bit longer for that. Again, hopefully over the weekend I can finish up that script, and we'll see where things go from there. Now, I've also actually been working on another thing, which is not even specifically video related, but I can go ahead and actually show you that stuff now. Let's see here. And I know that most of y'all probably will not even be interested in this, but it's still stuff that I've been working on. And it's actually nearly done, and this is all Starfield stuff. Specifically, this is a chart of planetary data. This is all the 121 systems, all 1,700 some odd planets involved here. All of the data regarding whether or not they're landable, have breathable air, life on them, gravity, the different planetary types, the temperature category or class, magnetosphere, what type of atmosphere it has, if there's an adverse atmospheric condition, what the type of water there is, the traits, and the biomes. I've done this for all of these, and this is actually only one of 2 charts of this type, actually one of 3 charts, but I've combined the other chart into a third form of chart here, which I will bring over now. This is the colonization data. So this one, again, I'm 3 systems now from finishing it. I've been working on this thing, and this has taken, I would say, probably close to 100 hours in terms of the overall amount of time that's actually been involved in making these 2 charts together. But effectively, I've combined the resource chart that I had early on in the process. Basically, this is all stuff that I've documented within the first 6 months of Starfield being out. And I've combined it with the planetary data that I collected via these original data sheets that I put together. So this is for the Zosma system, for example. You can see here each one of these planets or moons has their own piece of chunk of data here that I've then compressed into information that's visible on this chart here, which I have then used to fill out this section of this chart combined with the resource section of the rest of the chart. And the whole point here is to try to make settling planets easier, provide people with more information as to what the best planets are that you should settle, the requirement. So let's go over this real quick. Planetary habitation, this is a trait you have to have. Specifically, there are 4 versions of it. Well, technically 5 if you count 0. 0 level planets, you can colonize a lot of planets, but not nearly all of them. So let's go with the most difficult to settle down. 4 is for high gravity planets. Now, these are actually quite rare. In fact, I think there's only 3 or 4 of them that I've come across in the entirety of this, because most of the time you get to a significant level of gravity and you're dealing with an ice giant or a gas giant or a hot gas giant, and that is just obviously not something you can settle anyway. So those are rare. Next down is the adverse conditions, and so in this case we're talking about toxic atmosphere or corrosive atmosphere. You can see this one right here is a toxic atmosphere, corrosive atmosphere, and these require a level 3 planetary habitation trait. Level 2 is required if there's an extremely high pressure atmosphere, which you can find on a few planets here like Marduk 2 or Venus in our own system. And then if you go to category 1, that is a planet that is either deep freeze or inferno, and there's quite a few of those. So again, that's the point of this whole thing here. Gravity, again, same sort of thing where this just tells you basically more than anything the difficulty you're going to have navigating the landscape. Extremely low gravity planets, you can jump really high, but also you're going to spend a lot of time in the air. Very high gravity planets are going to take a long time for you to actually go anywhere because you move slower and it's harder to jump and everything like that. Planetary type, pretty obvious right there. Temperature, again, high versus low. At magnetosphere, the only real effect this has on settling a planet is that without a magnetosphere, you're going to get a whole bunch of... welcome to the stream, Rigel. Yeah, I know, we'll get back to the fallout here in just a minute. But the only effect that magnetosphere has is whether or not you're going to get extreme solar radiation. And so with the magnetosphere, you won't. Without it, you will. So there's just something to keep in mind. Atmosphere here, obviously, breathable atmosphere is something that's oxygenated. You can see the key up here at the top where blue is oxygen, yellow is carbon dioxide, orange is methane, and green is nitrogen. So you're able to breathe oxygen atmospheres, obviously. And then you've got adverse atmosphere. I don't know what that was. That I've already talked about. And then water. Water is just in terms of what you're going to be able to extract. I actually need to do some more research on this to find out what the exact effect is of having chemical water, heavy metal water, radioactive water, and biological water. And then after that, we have solar and wind potential. Now, this is actually where I've learned some interesting things, specifically that solar potential for a planet is not dependent on how far you are from the star, even though that's what they say it is in the game. It's actually entirely dependent on the temperature of the planet. Now, in most cases, the closer you are to a planet, the closer the planet is to the star, the hotter it's going to be. But that's not always the case, because sometimes you get moons that are orbiting gas giants that have a higher temperature than the other moons that are around them, or even moons that are closer in, and those actually have a higher solar potential. Sorry, what here? Have you found a gas giant moon that's breathable with swimmable water? Yes, there are actually several of those. In fact, why don't we take a look here real quick? Here we go. We got a gas giant moon just for Mufred right here. This is Mufred 5b, which has a breathable atmosphere. And let's see, in terms of, we can go to the planetary data to look at biomes. Mufred 5b. Let's scroll up to Mufred. Mufred 5b has, let's see, it's got volcanic, coniferous forest. It's got savanna, and it has ocean. So yes, you should be able to swim on Mufred 5b. So again, yeah, these are all, all this data has come together to produce this kind of information here. And I've been debating in my mind as to exactly how I'm going to present this data, because obviously I'm going to have these full charts, but I'm also probably going to do subcharts, things that are specifically like planets that have breathable atmosphere, planets that have life, planets that have oceans, things like that. And so we'll see about that. But anyway, at the very bottom here, I'm still got to fill out, and actually this is on the planetary data chart. I still need to finish this out some more in terms of, like, not everything is properly input here. I'll scroll down to the very bottom though, and you can see totals here. And these are either sums or averages. So far I've entered up in 1,406 planets worth of landable planets. There are 141 of those that have life, 176 that have life, 141 that are breathable. And this is an interesting ratio that I found, is that about 10% of planets have a breathable atmosphere, about 12.5% or 1/8 have life. And then beyond that, gravity averages out to 0.72 Gs. There are, again, I still have to enter 3 more systems, but with everything else, 398 barren planets, 461 ice planets, 542 rock planets, 29 asteroids, 157 gas giants, 5 hot gas giants. In fact, I think that number is going to be staying the same, and 58 ice giants. Beyond that, there's also an average temperature of negative 52.6 degrees Celsius. Now, again, like I've been saying, I've got to go back in and enter some of this data, because effectively what I've done is, if I click on this here, you can see that it actually has a value of 1. And what I have to do is go back in and find each one of these, because these things are actually, most of them are just colored. But if you can see here, the Inferno, all the temperatures here, I've already gone back in and put in 1s of the same color as the box. So that's what I got to do in order to actually get the proper totals, because when I was first going through this, I was just putting in colored boxes. Now, though, they do actually have numbers in them, and that's why I've started to get some number totals here in biomes and traits and stuff like that. But anyway, let's get back to Fallout. And again, I'm still working on the Atlantic City videos. It's going to be a single lore video, 3 surveil videos, and again, I'm hoping to have the first surveil video out Monday, specifically covering the Atlantic City Boardwalk. And after that, I need to get the AC lore video out, hopefully by next Friday. It's going to definitely be a long video. There's a lot of information in AC. I mean, actually, significantly a lot of information in AC, significantly more than they've put into previous pieces of content that they've put out there. It's actually been pretty impressive. Welcome to the stream, Sean. Wait, Clay. Sorry. I apologize for that. I was going through names in my head of usernames, and I came up with the wrong one there. I apologize for that. Welcome to the stream, Clay. But I mean, there's even just like a bunch of great little details here that they put into these things, like right here, where they took the original Mothman perch from when the, Ingram Mansion here was originally the site was held by robots. Then it was held by the Mothman cult, and that was really for less than a year, or maybe a little over a year. Yeah, a little over a year. And so what they had here, though, was a Mothman perch. But the great thing is that the Russo family from Atlantic City came in, found this place, decided to turn it into a nice casino cabaret. And along with that, they were like, no, let's leave this perch in here, because you can come out here, get a great scenic view for 6 caps, or even take pictures for 10. And it's like, I love how that they only have railings up to this point, but it's like everyone, no one's going past that, other than like crazies. Because I mean, you get out to this point, and you're over the cliff here, and looking down out of the Savage Divide into Morgantown down there, and into the Toxic Valley up there. But anyway, all right, so we can talk about a few things here. I don't want to give away too much before getting into the lore video, but effectively, just so you all are aware of how I came to the Atlantic City content, when the patch originally launched, I was not terribly interested in Atlantic City. Like, the pit was way more interesting to me because of the fact that checking on that. Gonna check in on the moon with the second screen. Yeah. I will also say that I've already put a link to all that data in the description for this stream. So if you're interested in looking at that stuff, again, I still have to finish filling out those last 3 systems. Then everything will be done. But anyway, so the way I came to this was I wasn't terribly interested in Atlantic City. I was much more interested in the pit when that stuff came out. Just because gambling is not something that's ever held any real interest to me. I think it's because I've played video games from like the age of 4 on. So flashing lights and all that kind of stuff with slot machines really doesn't interest me. And I was never really taught card games like poker and stuff like that growing up. I was taught Go Fish and War and things like that. But poker was never something that I grew up with. So gambling in general has never really interested me. So when they talked about Atlantic City coming, I really wasn't that interested. In the same way that I really wasn't interested when they talked about Nuka, what's it called? Nuka World coming. Neither one of those actually interested me all that much. But I was wrong about Nuka World. It's extremely interesting, not only for the parks that they created, but also for the backstory with the military-industrial complex and that kind of stuff. Your dad taught you blackjack when you were 12. Yeah. Hey, Southern Modeler, welcome to the stream.
Do this, do that.
Hope you're having a good week. And the other thing that about it is like all the backstory with the military-industrial complex,
really
working with Caleb
around.
Bradburton and all that kind of stuff. But with AC as well, it's been another thing where once I got actually into the content, I found it much more interesting. But the way I really got into it was originally just doing the expeditions. I didn't even touch the Russo family stuff until I was actually getting ready to start putting the script together for the video, when I was really starting to do the research. Because, again, the first time I actually came in here, the quest broke and did not go forward properly. I think that was the case. But regardless, I've now experienced the Russo family content a couple times over, and I'll probably have to record it at least once more. But it's all tied intricately into the story of Atlantic City. And so just to give you some quick information on the Russo family, if you're unaware of them, it's a 4-member family. You have Antonio Russo, the patriarch of the family. You have Evelyn Russo, the matriarch. Then you have Vin, or I think it's Vincenzo. I can't remember his name. He does have one of those typical Italian names that goes with Vin, Vincente, something like that. Anyway, and then his sister Abby. And so Antonio worked with the family, the Lombardi family, the mob group. Then you also have Evelyn, who was a showman. She was a performer working on the boardwalk. And then you have Vin, who, though his father had dreams of him working with a family, Vin was much more interested in working with the munis, the municipal government. So he actually worked within the flooded city center. And Abby, who was following in her father's footsteps for a long time, basically eventually... I'm not going to talk about too much why. She basically got shunned out of that work, but that ended up leading to her becoming a drug addict. And so now you effectively have to deal with the aftermath of the lives they lived in AC that led to them fleeing here to Appalachia, trying to get away from assassins within Atlantic City. So I'm looking forward to telling you all that full story about the Russos and all the factions of Atlantic City. See here, the beginning of my current year in high school, and I got in trouble with some of my friends gambling at school. Ooh, yeah, that's not good. Oh man, but yeah. So why don't we go ahead and take a quick look at Atlantic City? One of the things that I'm still not 100% certain of is why exactly the flooded city center is flooded. Now I have theories as to why, but I've not found. In what I've found, I've not found anything that hints specifically at why it is flooded, nor have I found any things on, I checked the wiki even, because I was like, okay, I can't find anything. Maybe somebody else found something in developer conversations or something like that they did on podcasts or something, but nobody has mentioned why the flooded city center is flooded. But I think it entirely has to do with the geology of the underlying of Atlantic City, which, if you're unaware, Atlantic City was founded in, well, technically it was kind of already existing by around 1850, but it wasn't actually incorporated until 1854. But the entire city is built on a barrier island off the coast, basically on the coast, but also off the coast of New Jersey. And so we're talking about an island that is entirely made up of sand. And if you're even able to find bedrock, we're talking about it being significantly below the surface. So I think what happened here is they've talked about this in the past with the Fallout games, but when the bombs came down, they actually caused the fault lines to unleash. And I think what happened was there was basically a tectonic shift that caused this part of Atlantic City to kind of sink into the sea. And in fact, there's even some documentation you can find of people who were dealing with the fact that the city was sinking at the time. Why don't we go ahead and we can go over to where I'm pretty sure that terminal is. It's one of those things where I've already recorded the terminals in their own specific videos, and so I go back to reference those rather than coming back into the city every time I'm trying to reference it. I do have a fairly good idea as to what the Overgrown are, which is they're basically people. They're again, the game also is a little bit vague on it, to where it could be something where they're effectively either zombies or it could be that they're just infected, but right, here we go. All right, yeah. So if we come down here to, so this guy, what is going on here? Is something trying to kill me? I'm not sure what that was. I kept hearing a sound effect. If we go in here, you can see that Robert here actually came back to New Jersey. He was from Atlantic City. He came back because his father owned this store here. And he didn't really want to come back because he hates the sea. His mother drowned, and so he's never been able to be close to the coast. He hates the sight of water. And you can even see here, he's planning to move back to Nevada. And he's got this thing, where is it? Not here. Oops. Sorry, not planning to exit the entire thing. And again, here, where he went out drinking with some of his old high school friends and went out on the beach and the water rushed in and it freaked him out. He was really, yeah, my character is standing on a skeleton. Basically what happened here, when the bombs came down, the water came rushing in, like he says right here. His dad was still working in the store, and he abandoned his father there because he's so terrified of water. So his father died down here in this shop. But again, so this is all this talking about the fact that the city center here flooded. And again, I have not seen it actually stated as specifically as to why. And it's the same sort of thing you find in the Southern Commonwealth in Fallout 4, where a lot of it has flooded. And I think effectively what's happened here is, like, they could explain this as maybe the ice caps have melted. I don't really know. Yeah, it could have been the skeleton, but it sounded more like kind of like a pulsing whooshing sound, which I think is more so things from the pollinators up there. But anyway, I think what's effectively happened is it could be, again, that the ice caps have melted, but I think more so it's simply the fact that the tectonic plates have shifted the way they have, and so some parts have now gotten down under the water. You think maybe tsunami, but if it's just a tsunami, then the water should rush out eventually. Because at the end of the day, you look at the rest of the city, and the rest of the city is not flooded. Why don't we go ahead and head to... actually, we should be able to... I can't remember which one is it that's right over here. It might be this one that goes directly to the casino quarter.
Again, I drank up all the coffee again.
Here we go. Is this for the casino quarter? Yes.
If I were you.
The casino quarter, yet another part of Atlantic City, and in fact, a part that is closer to the Atlantic coast, if it's anything like the real world Atlantic City at least. Which, by the way, if you're unaware, a lot of Monopoly names came from Atlantic City. Like, there's Marvin Gardens, there's Vintner Avenue, there's the Boardwalk, obviously, all that kind of stuff. But again, here we are, still in Atlantic City, and again, closer to the coast here than the city center should be, and there's no water here. So, I don't think that we're talking about a tsunami caused by bombs. I think we're talking about a land shift, because, again, part of the tectonic plate has... I think it even talked about, like, them shattering, and so basically parts of it have fallen down. I don't know. But that one dam in Fallout 4 was backed up, which explains why that one town is flooded. Yeah, no, that's true. But again, we're still sitting here in the middle of Atlantic City in both versions, in both the flooded city center and within the casino district, or casino quarter. I keep saying casino district because when you go here, you can go to Atlantic City, click on casino quarter, and visit district, travel to district, but it's the casino quarter. Let's go back here. So, the overgrowth, or overgrown, I can't remember what they're called, like which was the suffix on the end there. But regardless, again, effectively, there are multiple theories as to what they are that you can find in the game. Some think that they're potentially dead, that have been taken over by these spores. So I think we're talking a little bit more like a... The Last of Us kind of situation there, where I think that's how those things work. Honestly, it's been a while since I've done The Last of Us. I know that you can be bitten by those zombies and stuff like that, but I don't remember if they're actually technically dead or not. But the other version of it is kind of the Vault 22 idea, which is the living have been infested by some sort of plant-like creature that has turned them into zombies. Now, the interesting thing is that there's even documentation as to what specifically the cell structures Sorry, I'm trying to get up on top of the building here. What exactly the cell structures of these creatures are like, but they have animal cells, so no cell wall like you'd find with a plant. But at the same time, they have chloroplasts, which is why they're green. Okay, you think they're alive? Yeah, it's entirely possible. I have serious issues with the Walking Dead zombies. Not so much in how they're depicted in like most of the media, but because of the way that they're talked about by Milton, I believe his name is, and also the way they're talked about at the CDC. Which, just if you haven't heard my annoyed rant on that before, it's basically the idea is that from Milton is that if they don't eat, then they slowly starve to death. But the problem is that if there was any chance that they could actually starve to death, then that would mean that they would have to have a working digestive system, and a working digestive system requires the movement of blood via a working circulatory system. Which again, if they don't have a working, if they have a working circulatory system that's like part of how they live, then it should easily be the case that you could like shoot a zombie and it bleeds out, and that should kill it. Now, maybe it's one of those things where then they have to starve to death. I don't know. But again, it doesn't really make that much sense. And at the same time, also, again, if these things are truly, effectively, in a way, still living, then things like napalm should absolutely kill them. But if I remember correctly from some of the mid-seasons at this point, what in my mind is later seasons of The Walking Dead, when Carol goes back to Atlanta, I think you see some zombies that are like partially melted to the street from the napalm and they're still scratching around. Doesn't really make any sense. I prefer, so basically the way zombies should work is you should have either a sci-fi story to them or a fantasy story to them, but you really shouldn't try to mix them, because otherwise it just doesn't make any sense. And like, so if these things, okay, so again, these things could be that they're dead, but they're then infected, or it could be that they are living and infected. But either way, it could just be the spores that are making them move around. So either way, we've got some sort of fungally infected creatures out here where the entirety of their physiology has been changed. Now those things, I can't remember what they're called, pollinators, they seem to be the main cause behind it, but regardless of what exactly those things are from, which I'd love for them to have some sort of content to like really show the source of these things. I think he means that is
He wouldn't pay me enough to join the Baron Rangers.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Maybe, but I'm hoping that they actually introduce a fourth area that we can visit here at Atlantic City at some point. Let's see, and obviously we don't have anything obvious here. It's just like a plain map here. But I would like it if they would introduce a fourth one, which would be the Pine Barrens.
Feels like things are getting
because
worse
that
by
is
the
the
day
source
instead of
of the Overgrown. Because if you're unaware of the nature of much of the state of or basically the state of New Jersey, an enormous amount of the southern part of the state is called the Pine Barrens. And it's an area which, again, I need to do some more reading on the Pine Barrens specifically, but if I remember correctly, it's basically an area where the soil fertility is quite low. So even in early settlement, when you'd think they'd be looking for areas close to the coast to do farming, they couldn't really get crops to grow in this area. So it's like you cut down the trees, you try to start growing in the area, nothing really grows. But yeah, the Pine Barrens is where these things are supposed to come out of. There's an entire episode, well, there's an episode of The Sopranos, I believe, called The Pine Barrens. I can't remember if that's what it's called or not. Basically where a couple of the characters are hunting for a guy that's out in the Pine Barrens. That's the first piece of media that brought the Pine Barrens to my attention. But yeah, that's supposedly the source of these creatures. And in fact, the city here, the municipal government has, I think they're, sorry, the name is escaping me right for the moment. It's like Pine Barren Rangers or something like that. Headed by Sloan, which is a character you actually only meet during the quest with the Russos. Sloan is like the head of the Rangers that head out into the Pine Barrens, and they basically patrol the edges of the city to try to keep the Overgrown out as much as possible. Now, of course, there is also an issue with there being a hole in the bottom of the Neapolitan Casino through which a lot of these overgrown are also sneaking into the city. So this is an ongoing problem for the city. It's been really interesting to actually get more deeply into the lore, because so much of the time the stuff is fairly surface level. But there's a lot of stuff in here that actually goes deeper, because it's one of the, okay, so I've always enjoyed the fact that Fallout 76 has had as much as they've had in the way of terminal entries and notes and things like that. And obviously initially they had to have that stuff because they didn't have human NPCs to tell the stories. You had to go in and find them for yourself. Well, now the game has human NPCs, but at the same time the Atlantic City content has added in just about as many terminal entries as you would have gotten for the rest of the content when they didn't have NPCs. And again, so you can go in and, so for example, and I'll just give you another piece of information that I'll also be telling in the lore video when it comes to it. The two people really at the head of the municipal government are a married couple.
Tim should really be.
We can go in here. We got Frida right here.
Looking for coffee.
Frida Lane. She was at one point going to be an engineer, but her husband was inheriting a farm on the edge of Atlantic City. And this is Mayor Tim here.
The flooding's only getting worse.
So those two are a married couple. And so effectively they lived on a farm out by the Pine Barrens, which again is an issue because I think, like I said before, and I've got to look into this again to make sure I'm not misremembering things here. But the fertility of the soil is supposed to be pretty bad, and yet despite that, these two had like the most productive farm in the area because she was providing purified water that kept the crops going. But anyway, so Tim is extremely dedicated to the job here of working as mayor, and he has been for the past 17 years by this point? No, 27 years by this point. And yet, again, despite the fact that he's extremely dedicated to this, and despite the fact that his wife has worked incredibly hard here, and basically this would be the extent of the story you would have gotten in the past. It's just that, like, she's a hard-working person here who's keeping the city's infrastructure going, making sure they've got clean water, and what they got going here with Tim working here. The truth of the matter is that she doesn't want to be here anymore. You go through the terminal entries and notes and stuff like that, and she wants to be done. She wants to retire. She wants her and Tim to go off and just live out the rest of their lives. She doesn't feel that the city is worth attempting to save anymore. It's she thinks they're fighting a losing battle, and despite his constant efforts to attempt to save the city, she's ready just to give it up and go back to their home on the farm.
to save a few cats from trees.
Which again is not. I feel like that's something that I don't think we would have gotten as much information on in past instances of Fallout games. That's one of the things I've really enjoyed about 76. Again, is all the notes in the terminals and the fact that with Atlantic City they have really maintained a good blend of that and the new NPCs that have come in as well. Now they did have that with the pit as well. It's just there are so many more NPCs to talk to here than there were in the pit. So that's been the main difference there. Buttercup here really just seems like a caricature to me. He's a fun character. He would probably be quite mad at my character because he normally has a Buttercup, Giddy Up Buttercup on his mantle, and he's got it up there because he used it to beat a bunch of gang members to death. But I ended up taking it and scrapping it as part of my work to make a surveil video, so I don't think he'd be very happy with my character. But anyway, so yeah, again, working on the Atlantic City lore video, working on getting these surveil videos done. And let's see here. I think, yeah, I need to put a poll on the Patreon. I've not done that yet. I've been behind on that, working on this stuff. Let's see. I do have a poll on the Discord, though, which is there. Currently, leading is people want, out of the, so I put up 4 options for the Starfield lore video. This is a combination of what's left of the city government and people that have come in to volunteer. You've got Mayor Young here, who again was not the original mayor. The original mayor was Carly Day, which I remember specifically because it's so close to Charlie Day, who plays Charlie Kelly on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. In the original, I'm fairly certain that Mayor Tim killed her, because basically he gave her an ultimatum of, because she was doing a fairly poor job of running the city after the bombs. She was elected beforehand and was just stayed on and just was not doing a good job, and the city was starving and all that kind of stuff. He basically gave her an ultimatum of, you leave or I kill you. And the last thing we see from her is basically her laughing at his ultimatum and saying she's going to get some people to come in and help her out. But everyone's like, oh yeah, she left. And even Buttercup basically alludes to it by being like, oh yeah, she went on vacation. If you keep asking questions, you're going to go on vacation as well. But anyway, yeah, so this is a combination of the government workers that were here beforehand and the ones that have come on since Mayor Tim took over. And along with that, you've even got Anna Barone here.
Yeah, right.
And she was actually
City's
the
already on
child
fire
of
as
the
it is.
family. Her family wanted her to marry another Italian family out there and create some more mobsters, but she decided she wanted to do this. Anyway, the 4 options for the Starfield lore video are supposed to be Neon, Aquila City, Hopetown, and Gagarin Landing. Because I was originally just going to basically be doing Neon or Aquila City, but then I realized there's still a third... what's it
Anna
called?
drank up all the coffee again.
United Colonies city that I really haven't talked about, which is Gagarin Landing. And there are actually 3 main colonies for the
Don't ask me for directions.
Freestar Collective. Now, technically
one thing I
speaking,
don't miss.
there are 3 core systems to each group based on their original treaty, and then they both picked up a 4th during the Colony War, with the Freestar Collective taking on Valo. And Hopetown.
Around here lately. You'd
can't
think
remember
there
the
wasn't
name of
a
it.
war.
But then at the same time, the United Colonies also picked up...
We always need extra hands on
trying to
deck
remember
at
the name
City
of it.
Hall.
I can't remember the name of it.
Consider
Off the top of
joining
my head.
up.
Regardless, they're both only supposed to have 3 systems. They both have 4. And part of that... Oh, that's right. Ptolemy. Ptolemy is the 4th system within the UC that they're really not supposed to have. But they also don't really have it anymore because their main colony there was Londinian. And Londinian was destroyed by the Terramorphs. So, but before that, the UC really had a pretty crappy selection when it came to the planets that they chose, the core systems they chose. Because basically the Treaty of Narian was like, okay, we're going to limit our scope here so that we don't end up constantly fighting each other for territory. We only get 3 systems each. And the Freestar Collective takes 3 systems that are all nice. They've all got useful planets on them and stuff like that. And the United Colonies is like, all right, we get the Sol system. It's like, okay, well, after the Earth lost its magnetic field and therefore its atmosphere, you have no planets with a breathable atmosphere there, and basically no planets that are simply livable as it is. But fine, you get that. It is the home system for humanity, so fine. Then their next system is what's it called? Alpha Centauri, which is a good system. They got 2 planets with breathable atmospheres, Jemison and Gagarin. And then their 3rd system, though, is Wolf. And it's a 3-planet system, one of which is a gas giant, and the other 2 are Baron and Ice, I believe. And it's like, okay, why would you choose that system of all systems? But anyway. So yeah, again, I think I've covered most of what I need to talk about with Fallout for the moment, because again, I don't want to give too much away of the full story here. I will show you one thing real quick that I've discovered when I was recording my surveil videos. Let's go to the boardwalk. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about Starfield a little bit. Of course, I'm really looking forward to you all getting the story of Atlantic City. It's been a lot of fun. Titan would be a great planet or moon to colonize. Yeah, well, with its liquid hydrocarbon lakes. It's also one of the larger moons. It's not... I think it's second to Ganymede? I could be wrong about that in terms of moons, in terms of the size of moons, because obviously I think this is the case. When it comes to all planets within our system, they're all larger than the largest moons, but
Apocalypse out there.
I believe
Paradise in
Ganymede,
here.
Don't bother.
I think it's Ganymede is the largest, followed by Titan. Although again, I could be wrong about that. I need to look into that. But currently, with the poll on the Discord, and this could change when I put the poll up on the Patreon, the poll on the Discord has Neon winning currently.
I think I'll head down to the pier and catch a show.
The boardwalk, by the way, is... I had no idea about this. The boardwalk is 5.5 miles long in the real world. It was originally 7 miles. Well, not originally, but its greatest length was 7 miles long when it ran past Atlantic City, past the couple of towns south of it. It runs around Atlantic City from the north and then comes around down the Atlantic coast, all the way down to Marvin Gardens. We are going to the Aquarium of the Atlantic currently. And I think there's basically 2 piers that I could see this being based on. Neither of which are quite like this. There is, by the way, an aquarium in Atlantic City. And while the wiki says that the aquarium is closed, from Google Maps, recent reviews say that the aquarium has reopened. Now, it is nothing like this. It's on the land. It's completely above the water. But yeah, they do have an aquarium in Atlantic City. Let's see here. So the basic like, I'm not going to tell the entirety of the story here for the Aquarium of the Atlantic now. I'm going to save that for the lore video, but basically just know that, again, this was an attraction here in Atlantic City where you had literal views of the Atlantic Ocean outside. Like, some of these are aquariums. Like, for example, this is an aquarium. It's been drained. This one over here is an aquarium as well. But if we go through here... No, sorry, not there. Go up here.
Falling apart today.
This out here is literally just the Atlantic Ocean. Now, I don't know if there's actually this much sea life off the real world coast of Atlantic City, but yeah, that's the Atlantic Ocean out there.
Careful out there.
But beyond that, there's also a beluga whale tank, which I like. So when I grew up, I went to SeaWorld in San Antonio once or twice, mostly with school trips. In fact, on one of those trips, I saw orcas mating, so that was a good 5th grade field trip. Two orcas swimming by, mating right in front of the entire class. It's like, well, this was the good time to have the sex education class, I guess. Anyway, I had no awareness that there actually were captive belugas until I started doing this content. Basically recording the information here. And apparently they're quite popular, beluga whales in captivity. And it actually does make some sense. If you're going to have some aquatic sea life, and specifically mammals that you're going to show off in tanks and stuff like that, it definitely makes more sense to get some of the smaller ones. Orcas obviously are a bit large for practically any tank that humanity can build. It's why you end up with a lot of orcas with behavior problems, because they don't like living in those little tiny tanks. But this right here was a show tank for beluga whales. Marty and Mary, and unfortunately I believe that you can find Marty and Mary down here within the tank itself. I believe that this is one of them here, and the other one is right over here. They had 2 trainers, Brody and Aurora. Aurora managed to escape the confines of the Aquarium of the Atlantic, but Brody died here, stepping on a stonefish, which, if you're unaware, stonefish are pretty nasty. They kind of like sit on the sea floor, and they are covered in little spines. I've seen animations of the way they act, and I've also actually seen somebody basically shove something onto a stonefish spine, and basically they're like covered with like a little bit of skin, I think, but you press on it, and the skin stuff sloughs away and reveals this hard bone spike that's covered in toxin. And so that is how Brody died. Brody was the last one living here. He was here with the 2 belugas until the very end. He managed to get everybody else out of the aquarium, but after that the elevators down here were shut down and he couldn't get out. You can find him in the gift shop. We'll go find him right now. Oh, this is also cool. Sunken sub. Now, I need to take a look at the Chinese sub in Boston, but my bet is that that's just the same model that they threw in here. Exactly how it sank, I don't know, but it does look like it managed to open one of its tubes on the day of the bombs. So I'll need to look into that a little bit more.
Onward, upward, there are no limits.
Alright, and right over here in the gift shop, yep, is Brody. You can see him right here. And then you know it's him because of this note here called Camouflaged Bastard. Stepped on a stonefish while cleaning out the tank. He was actually trying to do his job the entire time after the bombs. He was trying to take care of the two belugas, even though one of them was becoming sad because she liked the visitors, and the other one was becoming kind of listless because he liked the other one, and she was sad, and so it was like whole thing there. But again, he was hoping to eventually release them into the ocean, but he never managed to do that as far as I can tell, because again, we've got two dead sea creatures in here. Now, these don't look particularly like belugas to me. They look more like dolphins, or something else even, because they've got those like kind of sharp teeth there like that. But anyway, yeah, that's I think what we can take as to what happened to Marty and Mary here in the beluga whale arena.
The adrenaline rush. Ah, I was on top of...
Anybody have any comments or questions or anything like that?
An airline would charge them extra.
Again, I'm hoping to have the Atlantic City stuff done over the next week. I really was hoping to have it done by the end of last month and then by the 10th, which is tomorrow. But again, everything's been a little slow on that end. And I will 100% admit that I spent a little too much time playing Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remaster. I got that game when it first launched back in 2006, and so the remaster launch just kind of hit me like a truck. Because like, I beat it the other day, and so I will not be doing that anymore, but just so you all know, that definitely was part of it. But also, definitely as well, was the making those charts for Starfield. Those things, just to give you a hint real quick, if you missed this earlier, and I won't talk about this a lot because I know a lot of you don't care about Starfield, but I'll just pull up this chart again real quick. Filling these things out, filling out the full system, like, for example, just scrolling over here, I keep forgetting how to pronounce that. It's a Greek letter. Ophiuchi, filling this out, and then the other part of the chart here for Ophiuchi, that by itself, doing both of these charts took half an hour. So if you keep that in mind, and the fact that there's 121 different systems, that understand that that's where a lot of my time went as well, is trying to get that stuff squared away. I started that stuff actually months ago, but I've really gotten into it pretty hardcore over the past couple weeks. So that's where a lot of my time has gone as well. So hopefully over the next week I will get the Atlantic City stuff done, and then I can get started on whatever the Starfield video is going to be. Again, it's probably going to be Neon at this point, but I have still yet to put the poll on the Patreon. I need to do that this afternoon, and we'll see after that. Because honestly, I would love to talk about any one of those, cities. Theory that the reason there's so many fish is because the open ocean has become so dangerous for the fish due to mutated creatures. Yeah. Well, no, I would absolutely assume that there are going to be a lot of crazy mutated creatures out there.
You look like someone with ambition.
The interesting thing is, like, there are so many fish that can be seen here. And again, this is not a tank. This is the ocean, as far as I can tell. And you can see a couple of those sea creatures out there. As far as I know, we've never actually seen any of these things swimming before this. Those things where you could find them on the beaches of the Commonwealth and Fallout 4, but they were not around anywhere. They were not any swimming, as far as I know.
Bottom of the ocean.
Now, along with that, we've also got some other fish here. Some of these, and I don't know. I'm not a fisherman. I've never really been into it. But some of these look more like freshwater fish to me than saltwater fish. But that, again, I'm coming at this as a relative novice when it comes to what fish you can find where.
The elite's got it good.
So, specifically that one to me looks more like a freshwater fish, but again, I could be completely wrong about that.
Mondays, am I right?
Today.
I think one of the interesting things that comes from visiting these places when not on the expeditions is seeing what the average clientele is that's hanging out here.
Wish I could have seen
Because
this
not
place
only
before
do
the
you
war.
have the showmen, because this is
Need
their
to get
territory,
someone
but
to
you have
repair
actual
this
just
pipe and
standard.
cinch it.
Yeah, I thought that the red-bellied one was freshwater.
In the glass?
You got civilians here, but also showmen, and then you got municipal workers actually hanging out and cleaning things up.
This city isn't
Okay, that's
self-sufficient,
nice.
That's for sure.
Sorry, I'm getting another message here. My wife got me this Aura ring. It's definitely interesting. I guess she was able to pay for it with her health savings account or whatever. But it's been telling me how I've been sleeping, and right now it was just telling me, hey, why don't you stretch your legs a little bit? It's like, maybe in a little while. But anyway. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to telling you all about the rest of this stuff, because the lore here is actually pretty extensive. Now the pre-war stuff is pretty thin. It's basically just a lot of it is just kind of guesses based on the existing stuff here. Like, so for example, the Aquarium of the Atlantic exists. They've got this amphitheater sort of thing right here. So obviously they're going to have people come out here, probably perform some sort of concerts or something like that, because you got this tank behind you here with a full stage though, where you could kind of see people coming in here for like music and stuff like that. You got, this is also got the Siren Theater, by the way, so it makes entire sense to me that you would find music events taking place here. But along with that, you got the Triton's Restaurant, Triton's Den, I think is what it's called. Let's see here, if that's the right name.
Upward! There are no
Sign is right here.
What does it take to get made? Just kill a guy
Yeah,
and
Triton's
the mob
Den.
shows up to recruit?
The restaurant.
You have to try the cocktail.
Again, so you can kind of make guesses as to what happened here before. And so there's other things like, if what happens on the boardwalk right now is anything like what was happening on the boardwalk pre-war, then you had people kind of like lounging around, you had buskers playing, you had people performing, you had people making little sales from stalls and stuff like that, all of which seems fairly real. In fact, why don't we, I can even show you like other little conclusions I've come to. Nope. By the way, this is kind of disappointing, the fact that you can't go to these places and just visit them, but at the same time, I kind of get it. There's definitely going to be more to see in Atlantic City because it's not a literal war zone. So I don't know how you visit the pit with its fanatic population occupying half the map minimum without it being an issue. But like, so for example, if you do the quest Custodial Compulsions, which is something that takes place after you've helped the Russo family through the entirety of their thing, you're working with a guy who, when you're hanging out by some of the dumpsters at one point, he's like, yeah, the municipal government doesn't empty these things out anymore. So you know, for example, that the munis used to empty dumpsters. Now it's one of those things where it's a question of, were they doing that still post-war, or was that even something that they picked up entirely post-war? Because at the same time, you talk to Antonio Russo, who again was a member of the family, and he talks about having been in waste disposal at one point, which is definitely something that, at least I've seen in media, has been linked to the mafia. And again, the family is literally the Lombardi family mafia group. Let's see, hate how Bethesda does population in Fallout 4, but at the same time it's genius. What do you mean by that exactly? Oh, sorry, I missed that one from Southern Modeler 29. How safe do you think the aquarium would have been on the day of the bombs? Okay, so I think it depends entirely upon the blasts, where they were, and everything like that. And I think, in truth, it would have actually been fairly safe. In fact, I think it would have actually been one of the safest places to be outside of a vault.
I've seen one too many Jersey slides gone wrong.
What was I coming here for, right? I wanted to show you all something in the early area. Sorry, I'll come back to the aquarium here in just a second so we can go take a look at that. But I just want to point out something over here to talk about the way life was on the boardwalk before the bombs. Got to go a little bit further. I was basically going over to the dumpsters where the what's his name, Saltwater Sam, talks about the munis used to pick up garbage, but they don't do it anymore.
I wouldn't do for it.
But if we come over here, like you got this go-kart right here, or golf cart, I'm not sure.
I was on
And
top
then
of
over there, we got this
No challenge.
like industrial vacuum. This is something that they introduced, I think, back in like Fallout 3 and concept art, and then they actually probably put it into the game with Fallout 4. I don't remember seeing these in Fallout 3. But regardless, so like basically one of the things I say about the boardwalk is like you had municipal government workers out here picking up trash, using the industrial vacuum to keep the area clean, people out here on the sand,
What's a plane gonna
lounging
do?
out on the sand,
Row with
watching
me?
the surf, with people on wave runners going by, or jet skis,
Glad
whichever
she
one you want
held
to call it. I
on the
think
way in.
wave runner is actually a brand
We'll
name.
see
but
about the way out.
anyway, let's go ahead and head back to, well, we got to run there, to the aquarium. So something to know about radiation is that if you're looking to block it, there
Do to cop a taste of devil's blood.
there are a few materials better than lead, obviously, if you're looking to block radiation, but one of the other materials you can use to block
City's run
radiation
by a
very,
circus,
very
the
well
Cosa Nostra.
is water. Water is actually extremely good at blocking radiation. I think the Diamond City would see... No, yeah. You definitely would think that they would.
Maybe I just won't go home.
Would have bigger populations. It's interesting because it's one of those things where you kind of have to know that there's a balance that has to be struck there in terms of population. I'll just keep
free
walking to the
time and
aquarium
no
and we'll talk
working
about this a little
television.
bit. Then I'll talk more about the aquarium on the day of the bombs when we get there. So you look at so earlier Bethesda games, especially you go back to like Oblivion, for example, the game I was playing up until a few days ago. Every character in those towns had a name. Every one of those characters had a schedule that they would follow, based on the Radiant AI system. And so it's one of those things where it's like you literally had to go in and create a house and a life and a job for all these people, places they'd be on specific times of the day, all that kind of stuff, which is
One
great.
thing I
It
don't
really
miss,
makes the game, the
driving.
world feel alive
Oh, I've
and all that
seen
kind of
one
stuff.
too many Jersey slides.
Now, that was also the case with things like Fallout 3, where you go into Megaton, and everybody there has stuff they do, but I think even Megaton, they introduced the Megaton Settler, which was just a random, basically unnamed NPC that would hang out in places, didn't really have a schedule, but yeah, that was just kind of the whole thing that they did there. By the time you get to Starfield, you really see that there's been kind of a slip into that being more of the norm, to where there's more and more unnamed civilian population people hanging out all over the place. And I agree with you that they need to have more named NPCs in these individual towns. But it's one of those things too, again, it's obviously the scope of the world has to shrink if you're going to increase the density of the population, because it's one of those things where it's like you've got a basically a budget when it comes to the amount of time you can spend building any world. And so if they're going to keep on building these worlds outward in size, then they're going to have to reduce some of the population that they're making. At least that would be the trade-off I see happening. Now, obviously, I think I would probably prefer there'd be more detailed NPCs, but at the end of the day, it's up to the developer as to what it is that they want to build. But yeah, I would have liked to see more named NPCs in places like Megaton and Bunker Hill and stuff like that. So, again though, sorry, I see another note here. Yeah, no, yeah. And there's also the whole thing where you have to consider that the Fallout world we get to explore is something of a facsimile of the real Fallout world. Real, again. Because you can find notes about buildings that aren't existing. For example, it's like, let me think about one specifically. There's a note in Fallout 76 about a way station in Morgantown that does not exist. And so it's one of those things where you kind of have to just assume that there's parts of the world that we're not seeing because Bethesda doesn't think that they're interesting enough to show them to us. So that's kind of something that we got to consider there. And it's the same sort of thing with population, I'm sure, and with the size of cities and things like that. Like, I've seen people create what would be a lore accurate representation of the Imperial City in Oblivion, and it's like 10 to 100 times the size that it actually is. And yeah, when you look at the Imperial City in game in Oblivion, it's like a moderately, it's probably the largest. You know, it is definitely the largest of the cities, but it's still quite small. You got those 6 districts plus the waterfront and the prison and the what's it called? Whatever, the Mages College. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. Regardless, in one of those districts within the city is the arena, and one of those districts is no, the rest of them all have housing and stuff like that. But yeah, so it's like you got 5 districts that are basically supposed to contain all the population, and like this is a city that's supposed to be absolutely enormous in terms of population and size. If it's supposed to be anything like Rome back in its heyday, back during the time of the Empire, then there should have been something like 1 million people living there. So let's see.
This city isn't self-sufficient, that's for sure.
Yeah. No. Yeah, and again, I do. Whenever I think we talked about the Winter of Adam stuff before, and it's like there's stuff there where if there's stuff in the game that effectively contradicts it, then I don't consider it to be canonical. But and when the conditions of the world are such that the conditions of the semi-canonical stuff basically could not exist, then I have trouble believing that it's canonical stuff. But okay, so how safe do I think the aquarium would have been on the day of the bombs? So again, like I was saying before, water is actually an incredibly effective shield when it comes to protecting against radiation. Now, also in terms of bombs dropping, we don't know of any bombs hitting Atlantic City directly. We do have the word of I can never remember how to properly pronounce his name. Veracio. We're going to go ahead and find Veracio real quick. Basically, his contention as to why the water off the coast is so radioactive is because 2 bombs fell into the ocean. And we're talking bombs that did not necessarily detonate. And these are supposed to be American bombs on an American bomber, where the bomber went down with the bombs on board. And that's what he says. There's a myth that says that that is the cause of the radiation. That doesn't really make that much sense to me. Maybe that's what it's supposed to be the case. And again, we always have to go off the idea that radiation affects life differently in the Fallout universe than it does in the real world. And at the same time, we also maybe have to contend that radiation itself is simply different in the Fallout universe as compared to the real world. But regardless, water is a very effective barrier against radiation. And now, along with that, again, though we don't know if any bombs, we didn't see any bombs fall in Atlantic City, even if it was an airburst, the water would act actually as quite a good shield against any sort of shockwave. So the Aquarium of the Atlantic would probably actually have been a very safe place to be. The problem comes, as it did for Brody, with the failure of the elevators. As soon as those elevators failed, he was trapped down here. And, I mean, we're actually fairly deep. Because you look, when you do go out to the areas where you can see up, basically out into the full just ocean, it's difficult to see the surface. So we're supposed to be actually fairly deeply down here. You know, Veracio Cruz here. Or Veracio, I can never remember how it's supposed to be pronounced.
Our sensation
But yeah, so my guess would be that if you were here when the bombs were coming down across the country, this would have been a place to be. But again, as soon as the elevators fail, you're stuck. This is my main issue with Vault 111, and it's a point that I brought up in my lore video on Vault 111, which is you have the door and the elevator effectively being the same thing. Now, technically, yes, it has a standard vault door, but the elevator itself is also something that either allows or disallows access to the vault. And if that thing were to fail, everybody inside the vault would be stuck. We don't see any secondary way in and out of the vault. The only way that the Institute got in was via teleportation. And so it's, and also the fact that the what's it called, maintenance staff and security staff basically had to launch a revolution against the science staff in order to get out, says that the front door was the only door. Again, you can't really see the surface here, right? So yeah, we're pretty deep here. So it's one of those things where Vault 111,
family?
The whole elevator door thing is a fairly poor design, because especially because we're talking about, it's like, okay, so we're assuming that this thing is supposed to survive the apocalypse. So if the elevator stops functioning, who's going to come and fix it, right? So generally not a good idea to have your access to something be reliant upon mechanisms like that. It should be something where it's kind of a dumb entrance and exit. Now, obviously, vault doors are a different story, and even the vault doors in the Fallout games, they seem like they would maybe be functional, but at the same time, they also there are definitely issues with them as well. Like if you look at like NORAD in the real world, or maybe no, I'm thinking of Cheyenne Mountain. You can see the actual vault doors that they have there. And they're like enormous doors that swing on a couple of hinges. And like that's the entirety, that's the way those things work for simplicity's sake. Because again, you don't want these things to end up turning into tombs, which is exactly what this did to Brody. He was stuck down here because these elevators failed. You don't want your only way in and out of an area to be an elevator. There's a reason that, like in mines, they typically have elevators to get men in and out for the purposes of mining, but they also have like escape shafts and stuff like that. And when they don't, that's also when they start running into problems. That's the same reason that in buildings you always have emergency stairs rather than just elevators. You got to have them there because elevators can fail. So anyway, though, unless anybody has anything else they want to talk about, I think we're getting close to the end here.
The city isn't self-sufficient.
I'm gonna go back to working on other stuff. I'm hoping I can finish up the last 3 systems in the Starfield chart tonight, and then that way I can be done with that, and I can focus the entirety of my attention on Atlantic City, because it's one of those things where it's like when I've got multiple things that I can work on, I'm gonna find something where it like takes the least amount of mental effort, which is definitely filling out a chart with data that I've already gathered. It's definitely not something where it's like, okay, I'm looking for something to do here, and my mind's looking for the easiest thing. It's like, all right, yeah, let's go write a script. No, it's gonna be the thing where I just go into a chart and I start filling out data that I've already collected. So
Well,
once I finish that takes away another excuse not to focus directly on the script itself. Random question: do you have a favorite type of robot? Yeah, let's see. Let's think about that for a minute.
Falling apart today.
So, I feel like Protectrons are cool in that they're like a very stylized 1950s retro future sort of a thing. The Sentry bots are also interesting, but they're also something that seems like they're incredibly impractical. Found 3 breathable moons with safe water. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'll stay on the robots for a second, then I'll come back to your Brotherhood question.
I was on top of the world.
The Sentry bots are also... I think the Sentry bots are probably the most realistic of all the robots. If you exclude the... it's something you could almost build now, excluding the fusion core. But in terms of Protectrons, we've actually already almost got something like that. I don't know if you've seen the company Nightscope, but they've built these robots that are shaped like bullets that like roll around on wheels. And they can't really do anything right now other than just like call the cops when they see something illegal taking place. But yeah, so those are... I like the style of Protectrons. Mr. Gutsies and stuff like that. They're definitely... There's a far more of a sci-fi aspect to them because of the little fusion... Or not, they're not fusion jets. No, that is the fusion exhaust jet that comes out the bottom of them. That keeps them elevated somehow. Or maybe it's not even involved with that at all. Because you look at iBots, which just float along like there's nothing going on. The Assaultrons are fun, just because like there's like a weird feminine aspect to Assaultrons. But again, Sentry bots, unless you, with the exception of the fusion core, are probably something we could build now. Then you've also got the Securitrons from Fallout New Vegas, which are also fun because they roll around on wheels. In terms of the favorite, probably Mr. Gutsies, and sorry, Mr. Handies more so than Mr. Gutsies, just because I think they're the most fun robots to interact with. Simply because you talk to them, and half the time they think it's still before the war, and so they just like will be like talking to you about. It's like just random stuff that makes no sense. But then you got the ones that do know it's after the end of the war, and so they're fun. Was it Codsworth? The K5 autonomous security robot is the future. Okay, so then you like Assaultrons best, yeah. Sentry bots have the issues with the cooling. Assaultrons are incredibly deadly, especially when they get that bug, when they just do the head cannon, like the head laser cannon repeatedly over and over and over again. Assaultrons are definitely the most deadly you come across, especially because with the Securitrons, or not, Sentry bots, you can usually kind of like try to get behind those things and blow them up that way, especially when they're doing the cooldown thing. Let's see here, though. Okay, how would you describe the Brotherhood as a junta or a far-right government? I don't know. Let's see. I mean, because it's one of those things where it's like, can you really be a junta when there's not a democratically elected government that's being replaced? I mean, because that's typically what a junta is they're coming in to, basically, it's usually when the military of a country is coming in to take over from the democratically elected government, because the military has decided that the democratically elected government doesn't have the best interest of the country in mind. Typically, we're talking, in this case, like I think the most prominent version of this currently is Myanmar, or Burma, as it's also known. In fact, I prefer to call it Burma because the junta calls it Myanmar. Plus, Burma is just, in my mind, a better name. But anyway.
Maybe I just won't go.
So yeah, again, it's hard to say that they're a junta when they're not really taking over from anything. They're also becoming more religious with the TV show. So they're almost becoming like a little bit of a theocracy sort of a thing, but they also don't really rule because it's not like they're basing their rule on religion. So I wouldn't say theocracy makes much sense for that either. There's some form of
The auditors
military
wear
government.
sunglasses.
It's difficult to say. They really kind of
Free to say the cross.
go beyond the standard definitions of government. I'd really have to think about that one a little bit more, because when it comes right down to it, some of it seems a little bit like the system of like Starship Troopers, where service guarantees citizenship, sort of a thing, where basically it's everybody that's within the society has to work for the betterment of their society.
This is a pocket of paradise.
It's
Closest
definitely
we're gonna
like it's
get,
not
after
not a democracy. Fallout's Brotherhood had a council. Yeah. No, and I think they all have a council. It's really only recently that they've basically stopped focusing on those councils. And in most cases, what we've experienced in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, for example, has been, and even in Fallout New Vegas, we're talking about, we're experiencing individual branches that have basically a singular leader. But even in the case of Fallout New Vegas, I think there's some, I need to look into it a little bit more there because I can't remember exactly, but I think that you've got that one paladin that's trying to get you to overthrow Elder McNamara there, and I feel like he was maybe part of some sort of advising council. There's definitely a council of elders within the main body of the Brotherhood. That is without a doubt and without question. That's a thing. In fact, we see in Fallout 76 and the early post-war stuff that what's his name? Elder Maxon has been kind of
Perfect.
what's the right word for it? Pressured into becoming more isolationist by said council. Yeah, the TV show was set on the West Coast, but again, we still have yet to see the full body of the Brotherhood there. We've seen this one chapter, we've seen the Prydwen arrive, but we still don't even know exactly what of the Prydwen's forces have disembarked, who was captaining the Prydwen at the time, and not really even captaining, who was commanding the Prydwen, because my guess would be that we still have the same captain as we see in Fallout 4, although it has been, what? I can't even remember off the top of my head. A few years, 5 years since Fallout 4, by the time the Fallout TV show comes out. But I would assume you have the same captain. Lance Captain Kells, I think is his name, was the captain of the Prydwen. But whether or not we're going to end up actually seeing the new Elder Maxon, Arthur Maxon, it'll be interesting to see.
I've been eyeing the potted Vikings.
But yeah, I mean, again, when Paladin Romani was into the East Coast, she was done. That was done partially because she was disagreeing with the Council of Elders at the West Coast. So again, we've yet to actually see the full Council of Elders or the full Brotherhood government on the West Coast. And it's actually going to be interesting. I would love to know, is this sort of a situation where they all within the Lost Hills, were they all in Lost Hills bunker, or was this something where effectively the paladins that headed all the individual chapters were themselves the elders? Did they constitute like the council that advised like the head of the Brotherhood? That's something I would also like to know. Is it something where like these people, again, there's like a command structure within Lost Hills, or is this kind of like a almost like Skyrim's got its Thanes that have a moot where they can meet up to have a conversation? I don't really know.
Incredible show last night. The atmosphere.
So again,
was...
it's difficult to exactly characterize what the Brotherhood's government structure is. Again, because there's not like another government that they're taking over from, so I don't think you can call it a junta. It's really difficult to say. So, see anything else here? All right. Well, I think that I'm going to call it quits here. Again, I'm going to put up the poll on the Patreon for the next lore video. I'm going to finish up the Starfield charts, and I'm going to get fully in on finishing the Atlantic City content.
out there.
Hopefully, have the first surveil video out Monday covering the Atlantic City Boardwalk, and have the lore video out by next Friday. That would be my hope at this current time. So you could consider that the council is a limited democracy. Yeah, I would say so. It's almost like an oligarchy sort of a thing, I guess. I don't know, but will there be a video on the charts? I should I should produce a video on the charts.
Make way for our sensation.
Yeah, again, and a junta also is a council as well, but it typically has like a head ahead of it. So, yeah. All right, I hope you all have a good weekend. Happy Friday, y'all. To you, Southern Modeler 29, Rigel, and Clay. And I don't think anybody else commented, but the rest of y'all who were just kind of just watching, I'd love to hear from y'all in the future. But it was good to see y'all, and I hope you all have a good weekend. And again, look for the Atlantic City stuff next week. I doubt I'm going to get it all done next week because, again, each one of these surveil videos takes an hour and a half to record. And it will take longer than that to edit them. And I have tried to record those things. My wife's not hanging around because she can't make a noise when I'm doing that, which is not really me being courteous to her if she's here. So I hope you all have a good weekend. And I will see you all next Friday, again, to maybe discuss the lore video a little bit. Have a good weekend, y'all.